David here, your co-host of Self-Sufficient You, and I'm very excited to have Chris Di Grazia. Chris is the head of marketing and growth, love that title, at JustVertical. And most of you know Jessica and I have had a JustVertical Eve model for many years, and we've showcased it in our community. We've done lots of articles, and we've actually done a video on it, so I encourage everyone to watch that. But really pleased to have Chris here who can talk more about the company, its vision, and its strategy for getting their fantastic units into more people's hands, and talk with us about the products from how to purchase to how to get started enjoying your first piece of produce from it. So with all that, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here. And it's funny you mentioned the title of head of marketing and growth. I generally try and omit the marketing part because it sounds very salesy, whereas the growth part is like kind of vague and it makes me sound like I'm an agriculturalist. And but unfortunately, I'm less sexy than that. I'm more just like a meats and potatoes marketing guy. But I've been with the company for so long that we all do a little bit of everything. So
Why
hopefully
not
I
just
can.
call yourself the Big Leaf? The Big Leaf.
That's it. The big leaf. I'll take that.
So how long have you been with the company? And just briefly, tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with the organization for 3.5 years, and I do head up marketing and growth. So because we're such a small organization, we're only full-time staff. We have about 10 folks. I'll do a lot of the front-facing stuff that people will see. So a lot of like the communications, a lot of the events that we run, a lot of the partnerships, the website, a lot of our social media channels, a lot of the activations that we do. But I also do get very intimately involved in the growing process as well. And then the manufacturing process and the actual ideation process and hardware creation process. So that's more so like, how are we going to make improvements on our Ava and Eve indoor gardens? How are we going to scale out or build out into different markets? So we recently have gone, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit later, but started doing container farms and larger scale farms. So very much in the process of like working out how we're going to grow in those markets, pardon the pun. And that's the awesome value of working with an organization so small, is that you get involved and intimately involved with all these different areas. And my personal background, I got involved in the organization because I was working at a software company during COVID, and had lost motivation and interest in what I was doing, and took time off, quit my job, and I was a hobby gardener prior to that on my patio in downtown Toronto. I live in Toronto, and I was like, I absolutely love gardening. I'd love to work for an organization that's into gardening. And I reached out to Connor and Kevin, who are our two co-founders, and said, hey, I'm happy to take a 50% pay cut. I got a little bit of experience in marketing. How do I get involved? And, the rest is history, and absolutely love what I do, love what we stand for, love our products, and love what we're trying to achieve. So
Isn't it awesome to be able to get up in the morning and do something you love, plus get some compensation for it?
it's amazing. Like as a marketer, like you can run the full gamut of what you could do. You could be selling missiles for Raytheon, or you could be working for an
Yeah.
indoor gardening company. So I think I kind of got the good end of that deal. And yeah, to your point, it's honestly awesome. It really is. And because I'm such a passionate hobby gardener, like being involved in the growing process, we have grow walls and stuff in our manufacturing facilities in Etobicoke in Toronto, and just being involved and seeing what we can grow and seeing the cool varieties that we can grow and taking that produce and donating it, like that really makes me feel awesome, and makes me passionate about what I do.
What are some of the things that you're trying out or experimenting with?
So on the product side, we're trying to build larger scale commercial farms. So for those who are unfamiliar with what we do, and this might be like a good segue into kind of giving a little bit more of a background on Just Vertical. We started as a company that builds indoor farms that we manufacture, but we manufacture them um, en masse essentially, and they're plug and grow. So the smaller Eve garden grows 12 plants at once. The larger Ava garden grows 16 plants at once. But these are manufactured, like we'll manufacture 100 at a time, and we manufacture them in Etobicoke. So they are built for, folks such as yourself, David. They're built for folks such as myself. They're built for folks and for their homes and to be put in the homes. The technology that we use in the Ava, we own a patent for that in the Ava and Eve. We own a patent for that technology. But the awesome thing about that technology is it can actually scale as high as we want to go and as wide as we want to go, using what is behind the face of the consumer product that we sell. So we recently, within the last 12 months, have had conversations with larger scale people and larger scale organizations who are like, we love your products, but can we do it where we're growing 500 plants at once, or 1,000 plants at once, or 7,000 plants at once? So as an organization, we are starting to move in that direction, as well as continuing to service our consumer products and build out our consumer market. In our manufacturing facility, we're testing a lot of that commercial scale stuff, as well as like plants that we can grow in the Ava and Eve. So we have built it's about a 12 by 6 foot wall that is using the same technology in the Ava and Eve, but it's got grow lights in front of it. And we're growing a whole bunch of different plants, things like flowers, interesting varieties of like kale and arugula, and trying different pepper plants. We've got a bunch of jalapenos growing in there and experimenting with different nutrient recipes and everything like that. So we can optimize the growing firstly for ourselves when we're building these larger scale farms, and then also for folks with our consumer farm. So if they want to grow different varieties or try different things, we're also experimenting with that. So we're constantly iterating on that, iterating on different pieces of hardware like lighting technology, proximity in terms of plant sites, all that kind of stuff you could possibly imagine.
For the commercial stuff that you're experimenting with, who, and I don't need names necessarily, but what would be kind of the typical client market that you're targeting?
It's a really good question. So it would like it starts at private residences, and we've got farms in private residences, and these are higher net worth individuals, but it doesn't have to be a high net worth individual. Where you've got extra growing space or extra unused space in your basement, for example, right? So that's where it comes in it kind of transitions from the consumer to higher scale, but still consumer market. And then it works into things like long-term care homes is definitely one market that we've identified as having a huge opportunity. New condo builds is another area where we've identified a huge opportunity. And one that's very, very interesting to us is governmental bodies potentially in the future. And the product that we're still deciding exactly what the product looks like, but one of the products that we have, and we actually built a few of these farms, but one of them in particular is at Seneca College in North York in Toronto. They're in shipping containers. So using the same technology, but putting them in a shipping container. So you can imagine the use cases for that just about anywhere, right? So if I was to use, let's say like I'm currently in Texas right now, just on a brief little vacation, but you can get it out into the desert in Texas or Arizona where it's too hot to grow, right? And place these shipping containers in those locations and use a HVAC system to cool the system down and the shipping container down, and you can suddenly grow in Arizona. Conversely, you could go to Northern Ontario and remote Northern Quebec in Indigenous communities and do the same thing. So the utility is huge for the ability to be able to grow produce in places that are otherwise inhospitable for agriculture. One really interesting use case is actually in the Caribbean. So the Caribbean, like ostensibly being Canadian, like we all think the Caribbean, you could grow anything out of anything, right? Because the temperature is so hospitable to growing crops, but they don't have the land, they don't have the soil, they don't have the flat land that we would have in like Saskatchewan and Ontario, for example. So the Caribbean is actually quite inhospitable to grow things like fresh produce. So there's even use cases in places that you would think that are super acclimatized to being able to grow produce.
As you're talking, I can think of so many different scenarios where your products would be valuable. So as you said, in inhospitable places, whether it's the Arctic, where having just not being able to grow necessarily fresh produce for very long, or just the economic benefits of doing that because it's so expensive to buy, say, a head of lettuce, like it's $20, Nunavut kind of thing. Even in places like in urban areas where it could be, I just don't have the physical space, like I live in a, bachelor apartment, or I live in an area of town where I just can't. It's economically depressed. There are so many scenarios I see, like you said, in the desert in Arizona. It's yeah, the application of this is the potential is huge. Plus, we haven't even talked about the quality because now I'm able to grow. This is what we do using GMO-free organic seeds And now when we grow in our Eve model, we know what food we're getting. We know that there's no pesticides on it. We know exactly what is in our food and what's not on our food. And for us, that's a huge benefit.
And that's very much what we appeal towards, right? And we're trying to get people to take back their food sovereignty. And we've you mentioned the word a couple of times, but in a different context. But desert is actually a very interesting word to me because there are food deserts in a lot of places in Canada and across the world. And one place that's actually really interesting that comes to mind immediately is in downtown Toronto. I don't know how familiar you are with it, David, but Moss Park is considered a food desert.
Hmm.
So people are not food secure in Moss Park, which is in downtown Toronto, essentially, right? And it's amazing that people in those particular environments can't get access to affordable, fresh, pesticide-free, healthy produce. And we live in 2024. Now, the inaccessibility could be from a range of different reasons, right? It could be affordability. It could be a logistical problem because you can't get the food to those particular locations. What we're trying to do as an organization is trying to alleviate pressure on those while also positively impacting the environment as well, right? So we know that we're not necessarily going to solve all these problems on our own, but we know that in terms of the food sovereignty in particular and people having access to fresh, healthy, pesticide-free produce, like we are really at the kind of, the ground zero of battling a lot of those issues that we face as a society.
And I really love that model. Acts giving humans access to fresh, inexpensive food. I mean, it's kind of sad we have to say that in 2024, but so many people do not, right? It's unbelievable.
And we were talking about getting up in the morning, and that's also what makes me super proud to get up in the morning and what makes me passionate about it as well. Like, it is crazy. It is crazy. And it is crazy that, you have to go to Northern Ontario. You can go to Northern Ontario and a can of Coke might cost you $2, but a head of lettuce costs you 20. You know what I mean? That just, in my mind, that just doesn't make sense. And I don't, it's not a system that I am particularly like fond of personally. And I want to be part of, you know, the opportunity to alleviate that issue. And obviously there's so many, it's so complicated and loaded in terms of thinking of all the implications of all the competitive products that we have to deal with beyond just growing produce. But what I want to do is try and focus on produce and how do we actually make it affordable? How do we make it accessible? How do we avoid it coming from Central America or
Yeah.
Texas, driving up to Ontario, and then, you've got food that's sprayed with a bunch of pesticides to keep it fresh? How do we reduce our reliance on these systems that are so entrenched? And that's very much what we're involved in.
I mean, we love walking by our Eve model here, whether it's in the height of summer or in the dead of winter. I call it the drive-through. I walk by and I usually grab a few pieces of lettuce right off and eat it. Any time of the year, it's the quality is unbelievable. I always tell when we have friends over, try the arugula, because you not believe how peppery it is. The tomatoes, it's just we a lot of people have no idea what fresh food tastes like because they're just used to the grocery store version of it. And this is real food, and you're getting introduced to its true natural taste. And a lot of people just haven't experienced it.
It's like a religious moment. The first time I have a Italian heritage. So my surname is Di Grazia. And, I remember every time I smell a tomato, it reminds me of my nonno's backyard, and him growing tomatoes. And it's just such a tragedy that so many people don't have access to that. And I mean that in a way of like, I don't think it's the individual's fault. You know what I mean? I don't think it's down to the individual necessarily for not having access. I think it's just societally we're set up in such a way that it is just easier to get a box pizza. You know what I mean? And I get that. I understand that. What we want to do is we want to flip the economic model on its head to allow people that there's an economic incentive as well as a, gastronomical incentive to get fresh produce versus buying that box pizza.
Do you find that, getting back to your most part kind of scenario, do you find you almost need to take a step back and educate people about the value and the importance of growing their own food, the importance of eating healthy, the importance of having access to different kinds of food that's going to sustain your health and actually save you money? Do you find that you even need to take a step backwards sometimes before you can have a conversation about your units?
Yeah, it's a good question, and honestly, I wish I had a nice little neat answer to give you and be like yes or no. But you know what? I don't know. I don't think it's that people don't know. I think, look, I think particularly in the current environment we're in, I think there's not an economic incentive to purchase fresh produce. I just think it's too expensive relative to something that is far cheaper that comes from the freezer. But I think it's also like a socio-cultural thing as well. I think just habitually speaking, people are used to not necessarily making their own food and cooking their own food. And it's funny, like I'm down in Texas now, and I'm kind of not in the city of Texas. I'm kind of a little bit out, and even to find a grocery store that has fresh local produce is so difficult. And that's to me is a socio-cultural thing, right? There's no
Yeah.
economic incentive for a grocery store to be in this area because people don't buy fresh produce. They just eat out, or they'll go to there's a gas station which has a mini grocery store, but it's all processed food. So I don't think Canada suffers as much as maybe they do in the United States. And that's a little bit of a sweeping statement and a generalization when I haven't traveled a huge amount around the United States. But just from 30,000 foot view, it just seems that it's people don't like, it's not that people don't know eating lettuce is better for you than eating a box pizza. It's just, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion. I don't know if it's right, but my feeling is, like you said, as a society, we've grown accustomed to convenience. We've delegated out many aspects of our lives to others, whether it's changing my tire or uh, everything in life, from school boards to attending meetings. We've delegated everything out to life, including our food. Every Saturday, people go down to the grocery store and get their food. But one day, what happens if it's not there? Like most people don't even have food stored in their basement uh, just for economic reasons because, hey, this was on sale this week. I think I'll buy a couple more. So I think it's become a case where people are getting lazy. Convenience is killing us. But I guess the flip side is over the past 4 years, um, maybe from working from home more or for other reasons, people are becoming more aware that, oh, I actually do need to cook more. I can't be eating out all the time. And so some people have refound the art of cooking or learning it for the first time. And I think too, people are looking to be more healthy because a lot of people are not healthy these days for a variety of reasons. So they're looking to take a bit more control over their health and as you said, sovereignty, food independence. They're looking to. I know a lot of people, and many in our community are avid gardeners, and either have expanded their little garden in their townhouse in their backyard, or maybe purchase one of your models for their apartment because they just want that security of having some fresh food around. So I think the trend is more, from what I see, is just building your own, a bit more independence in your life. And that includes having a garden, having an indoor hydroponic garden for the winter as well, for all season, and becoming more aware and knowledgeable and skillful in food preparation.
It's funny because like from a generational perspective, I was thinking about this literally last night, just walking around, having a walk around, and I was, the generation, my grandparents' generation. So my grandparents were born in the 30s. They were very reliant on self-sufficiency, right?
Yeah.
And they would, as I said, my nonno would grow his own tomatoes and he would make his own wine and he would do the whole lot. I think it's the generation maybe starting in the 1950s, like I think of, even my father, for example, like he doesn't know how to cook. And it's that generation up to my current generation. I was born in 1992. So I think it's the next generation is cognizant of it, but definitely up to my generation, up to maybe even, people born 95, 96, you're just so accustomed to never having that self-reliance that it's we're not used to it, right? So I think that's very much what you're speaking to as well, is it's just there's 70 or 80 years there where people have become so used to your point, convenience. But I think we're starting to see the direction go back to people being more self-sufficient and more self-sufficient.
I think that's exactly it. I think of my grandparents and in the self-sufficient youth community, I always talk about, going back to the way our grandparents used to live, having a garden in their backyard, preparing their own meals, doing things for themselves. And the results of that is you're less dependent on others. Should something happen, you're less dependent on the grocery store. You're less dependent on, if the power goes out, that's okay because you have whatever, right? Or if that food is all that food that you want is not available at the grocery store that week, that's okay because you have, freeze-dried strawberries and canned tomatoes downstairs. It's not a big deal, right? And I think there's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a trend yet, but I think more and more people are you know, getting re-inspired to say, I know what, I think I will maybe learn how to dehydrate, or maybe look at growing a little garden outside and maybe have an indoor hydroponic unit for the entire year.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk about your systems. As I mentioned, we have the Eve model. We've had it now, I guess, for probably 3 years. Got to tell you, it's a fantastic. We absolutely love it. I think we have one of your originals, the with the wood, total wood. And I remember when my wife Jessica said, "Oh, I think I'd like to buy one." I had visions of crazy mad scientists, hydroponic, metal trays and lights everywhere. And I had worries of maybe bugs getting in the house. And I was a little hesitant, but she bought it anyway. And, I got to tell you this, I always say people come over and they're like, "Oh, what's that thing over there?" Because it looks like a piece of furniture. It doesn't look like a typical garden. And they have to ask, "What is that?" We say, "Well, it's a garden," because it's not super obvious at first. You know, of course, you have this glowing like the sun in your face, but if it wasn't for that, then people wouldn't know it's a garden. So we absolutely love it. We use it obviously all year round, and we grow everything from all kinds of different lettuces to we've grown cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers and all kinds of stuff in there, and we absolutely love it. So we love the unit itself. We find it very high quality. We had a problem with the pump once, and you guys replaced it, I think, within 48 hours, and never had a problem since. So the customer service has always been outstanding. And I think we've inspired some of our friends to, and I know we have, to buy their own unit. And they too echo the same sentiments where they just love it. And it's been kind of life-changing. I know it sounds kind of dramatic, but it really has, because it kind of has put the power back into our hands and to others in terms of, oh, look at that. We're able to grow. Maybe they weren't gardeners before, and they were able to grow, or they've maybe secured their food a bit more, having a little less reliance on the grocery stores. I remember months ago there was this big uh, shortage of romaine lettuce at the store, or it was 10 times the price or something, and we're like, we don't care. We have some in our garden here, so it doesn't matter. So anyways, that's our experience. It's been very positive, and I know within our community there's been a lot of conversation about JustVertical and your garden. So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about the products you have, and then maybe go into how does it work? Like, how do I buy one? How do I set it up? And how do I get it started?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it already, but I'll run over both gardens that we sell. So we sell the Eve garden, which is what you got, David, and then we sell the Ava garden. So in terms of footprint within the home, the Ava's about 2 feet wide and 4 feet high, and it'll grow 12 plants at once. It's got a cabinet at the bottom, and then up top is the growing area where the plants will actually be growing. In the cabinet at the bottom, which is about it's about 1 foot high. There's a water reservoir in there with a pump that you mentioned that we replaced. And that pump and that water reservoir you fill up once every, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how large the plants are. And then the pump in the water reservoir will pump the water up the side of the system, up to the top of the cabinet essentially, and then trickle down to the plant sites, give the plants the water that they need, which makes it hydroponic growing. And then whatever they don't use is actually recycled back into the reservoir. So it's a very, very simple system. We have deliberately avoided trying to integrate a whole bunch of technology and tried to avoid integrating Internet of Things and timers and sensors, because we found that just going analog with this is as complicated as you need to get, because the growing process is actually quite simple. So as I said, we've got the Eve, which is 2 feet wide, 4 feet high, and then we've got the Ava, which is can grow 16 plants at once. It's essentially two eaves next to each other, so about 4 feet wide and then about 6 feet high, it's because to accommodate those extra four plant sites. The Eve is great to grow leafy greens, herbs, and herbs in particular. In particular, in the last 12 months, 18 months, we introduced a couple of leafy green varieties that are hydroponic specific varieties. And those are like grow amazingly well in the Eve. And you'll get a full head of lettuce that'll cost you $3, $4 at the grocery store. You'll get one of those every 4 to 5 weeks. So um, the Eve is really, really great for that. And it's also really great for like pick and come back herbs. So things like cilantro, which you generally buy from the grocery store, you might use for a few dishes and then you have to throw it out with the plastic packaging.
Yep.
Really awesome to grow in the Eve because you could just pick a few little leaves of cilantro, put them on your tacos, and then the plant will continue to grow and continue to regenerate. Things like parsley, thyme, mint, they grow really, really well in the Eve. The Eve is perfectly suited for that. The Ava is perfectly suited for those for the leafy greens herbs, but additionally, it can also grow some flowering vegetables. So you can grow things like jalapeno peppers, small mini bell peppers, for example. You can grow cherry tomatoes. You can grow small mini cucumbers. They fit within the Ava system as well. So we sell those two systems. We sell them predominantly online on our store at justvertical.com right now. We also sell in a few retail locations across Canada and across the United States as well. Our products are available in Canada and the United States. The Eve costs 7.99 Canadian, 5.99 US, and the Ava costs 9.99 US, 11.99 Canadian. And you can grow again 16 plants at once in the Ava and then 12 plants at once in the Eve. As a product specifically, and you kind of touched on this about the design of them, we very much focused on the aesthetics of the product. There are other gardens available in the market, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. But what we really focus on is how do we make a product that you can incorporate into your day-to-day life versus something that you hide in your basement and you're using for produce, but it's not part of your life, right? It's not part of, the dinner parties you have at your house. It's not part of your kitchen where your children are running in and they might be trying to, they might pick off a leaf of lettuce or something like that. For us, that was super important in integrating in the product and making sure that it was aesthetically beautiful as well. So that's kind of a broad overview. I don't know if I touched on everything that you mentioned there, but yeah, that's a broad overview of the products we sell and how they work.
Yeah, we really like, and I'm sure others will too, the fact that it's not in the basement. The fact that in our case, it's here in right next to the kitchen in our living room. So as you said, of course, if I want to go pick off some mint or some thyme or oregano while I'm cooking, boom, it's right there. But the other thing too is it's part of the conversation space. It becomes a conversation piece often when we have new friends that come over. They're like, "Oh, what is that?" It's a conversation piece, and it just gets that talking about food in general, and the food independence, and just the whole concept of eating more healthily, and just all that kind of good stuff. So I find it's even more than just a way to grow some fresh herbs and greens, right, in a practical way.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the comments you said, I basically couldn't wipe the grin off my face. Like we it's been unfortunate, but we don't often get like a lot of people just reaching out and giving positive feedback unsolicited, and we do get it solicited, and we often get like a lot of really positive reviews, and they're great to see. But just to hear like the impact that it has positively is just like, it makes all our work worthwhile, and it makes us super proud on what we're able to achieve and have the impact. And look, again, we know that you can only grow 12 plants at once, and that means you're not going to alleviate having to go to the grocery store, and it's very much what we're focused on trying to get people to do. But if we can have some small impact and encourage people to grow their own produce at home and be able to grow, alleviate some of their reliance on traditional grocers and reduce their plastic packaging and reduce their food travel miles, like, and also have a really amazing experience and let people experience the fresh, flavorful food that doesn't have pesticides in it. It makes everything worthwhile for us. And there's a couple other things I want to touch on. So something I didn't mention actually when I was giving the overview of the product, when you purchase one of our gardens, we actually provide all the seeds and supplies that you need to be able to grow the value of the garden in produce. Now, if you buy the Eve, for example, which we sell for 7.99, I think I might have said 6.99 before, but it's 7.99. we'll provide you enough seeds to grow $799 worth of produce. Now, it sounds kind of gimmicky, but the reason we can do it is because we get the seeds cheap. You know what I mean? Because we're buying the seeds on bulk and the growing materials we're buying on bulk as well. All the extra markup that you pay at the grocery store is for Sobeys marketing team. It's for the picker, it's for the truck driver, it's for all the pesticide use that they use, it's for the water use that they use, all the materials
Yeah.
that go into it. We don't have to pay for any of that. So that cost is your time, and that time is about 5 minutes a week, 10 minutes a week, right? So we also provide all that when you purchase one of the gardens. So the idea is that your garden will pay for itself in about 12 months when you purchase one of our gardens. Something else that I really quickly wanted to touch on that you did mention when you were giving us a praise, which again, super appreciative of, is the support side of things. Now, may end up dying on this hill, but I am so focused as an organization just to be normal and just run things in a way that just makes sense. It's kind of how companies, we're talking about what it was like 80 years ago. Like we were trying to run the company like it was companies were run 80 years ago, where it's just like you buy a product, you get the product, you get what you buy. We try and add in additional value where we can. We try and service people where we can. I'll give you a little anecdote. So I just flew from Toronto to Austin, and on my flight was cancelled on that first flight from Toronto. I was actually in Antigua, so it was from Antigua to Austin. And as part of the flight being cancelled, I was put up in a hotel, a Best Western, I think it was, or a Hilton or something like that. And I roll up to this hotel and they say, here's your Wi-Fi password. And I log into my Wi-Fi. And when I log into my Wi-Fi, one of the options was like, do you want to pay $5 extra for faster Wi-Fi speed? And in my head, I was like, why is it just not available in the first place? Right. And a lot of companies will do stuff like this. Like a lot of our competitors will tell people to get into a subscription model. Now, I don't want to coax people into getting into a subscription model because I believe if they like our products enough, they should just want to come back and buy them. And I don't want to compel people to have this subscription where they forget about it. And so many companies run their companies on a spreadsheet that I'm so focused for us not to be like that, again, it may be a hill that we end up dying on. I really hope it's not, and I end up dying on, but I would rather that we just share this story of us just trying to be a relatable human, like focus on human to human interaction. And that goes to our customer support as well. Like I help out with customer support regularly. I often take customer calls and have chats and conversations with troubleshooting because I just think it's the right thing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. It's not complicated. It's quite simple, I think. And maybe I'm just an idiot, and that's probably the case.
Yeah.
But if you make a product that in your heart is well made, that and you're going to stand behind it, and then when someone calls with a question, you actually answer the phone. It's not some chat bot, you know. And you care enough to ask your customers, "Hey, how's it going? Did you like it? Is it working well for you? It's oh, this is good, but this could be fixed. Oh, cool, and actually listen and ask, and doesn't mean you have to make that fix or make that change, but if enough people are saying it, yeah, maybe we should, adjust this and fix that, and then put in another version. It's not that complicated. Like you said, get your head out of the spreadsheet and talk to your customers and find out how's it going and what do they want, what do they need. If you continue to do that, I think you're going to stand out for many, many, many years because too many companies are worried about the bottom line, or they making enough profit. And then that product you bought originally becomes more of a plastic version, and then the parts become cheaper. And then it's just, the customer service, all for the reasons of efficiencies, just not the same, right? And then people lose that connection to what they originally connected with, and it was with the people and the awesome product.
It's a big bet that we're making, right? And it shouldn't be a bet. You know what I mean? It should just be how business is run. But it is a bet we're making right now. We're trying to move away from the commoditization of it, and we've been doing it for 2-3 years. But we're trying even harder now to just do things that are really valuable, that are the right things to do, and rely on that to build our business because it's such a race to the bottom right now, and we're trying whatever we can possibly do to avoid that and get involved in that.
Yeah, I just love the story behind the company, and I love your approach on being customer first and standing behind your products. And I'm just not saying that. I've actually experienced that. We've called up customer service, email and whatever, get a response instantly. And you don't always have to have an answer. But the fact that someone listens and shows that they care, and it's not always fixable, but at least I know we appreciate that. Okay, you were there, you tried and you felt good about it. Now, we've never had a case where you guys haven't been able to correct an issue because we really haven't had many issues. But just the fact that you were there and you listened and you actioned it quickly, that's hugely meaningful. And we always share that whenever we talk about Just Vertical. It's not just a great product, but it's the amazing customer service behind it too. And I think a lot of people are looking for that these days.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear.
The other thing that getting back to the setup of the unit itself, I found it really easy. I mean, and you can talk about this as well. I took it out of the box. I think I screwed the feet on. I plugged it in, and I really like the low tech. Uh, I'm a techie guy, but in this case, I appreciated just setting up the timer, and that's it. Like I don't have to do anything else. It's self-maintaining. Like you said, you keep the water reservoir filled up not my case, every couple of weeks, and add the nutrients every now and then. There's nothing else to do except for maybe trim the roots every now and then. So when someone gets the box at their home, I can attest that the setup is easy. And maybe you can talk about, okay, well, what do I do next? Like you said, it comes with seeds. I guess the other thing that I wanted to tell people is you guys provide awesome seeds, but if someone already has seeds at home or they have another brand of seeds that they want to use, they can still use their own, correct?
Yeah, and like I actively encourage it. You know, again, it's not it's kind of contradictory to us making a lot of money, but you know what? If you got seeds at work, like we do carry some organic seeds, but we predominantly our seeds are not organic, and that is something that's really important to people. And I encourage people, if you're into organic seeds, West Coast Seeds is a supplier here in Canada that do a great job on seeds. I'm always like, go to West Coast Seeds website and just buy them and just check them out and give them a crack. So to kind of answer, you didn't necessarily frame it as a question, but just to kind of elaborate a little bit on the growing process specifically once you plug it in, we also include a seedling kit with the garden. So the seedling kit is a small little germination station that we sell it as a standalone product because you can use it for seed starting for summer seedlings that you want to put into your garden and transplant into your garden as well. But it's essentially a grow tray that has 30 grow spaces. We provide again all the supplies like the growing material. We grow our plants in peat moss as the medium to grow in, but there's space in these grow trays for 30 of these peat moss plugs. It's got a little USB-C plug-in and a little light on the seedling tray. That's the current version we have. David, you probably have an older version, so email me and I can send you I can send you the newer version. But the new germination station and dome has a little USB-C plug-in light that'll germinate your plants. So germination, I say, will grow your plants from seed to the point where they actually sprout out of the seed, pop out of the seeds, and then they get to about an inch or two tall. And then you actually transplant them physically into the garden, into the plant pots that are included on that face that I've seen. And if you're struggling to visualize this for folks who are listening to this podcast, just Google us and have a look, and it'll all make a lot more sense, like visually, of how it all works. But yeah, essentially you just add them, you pop them into the plant pots that are on the face of the garden. The one thing that I didn't mention with the setup is the light as well, and you did touch on that very briefly. We have automatic timers for our lights. The lights are full spectrum LED lights that will allow you to grow whatever plant you want. They replicate what the sun does in the natural environment, but it's actually it's a more tailored, better growing environment than what you get out in nature because there is variability in nature plus seasons in nature, which means that depending on your proximity to the equator, you could get pretty drastic swings between daylight and evening light, which is not ideal, particularly in the winter in a lot of places to grow plants, as well as the weather, right? So being able to grow indoors, you can set the light for 18 hours is generally what we recommend for like leafy greens, for example. Set that light for 18 hours, have it on in the kitchen, keep the room temperature at 18 degrees, 20 degrees Celsius, 70 Fahrenheit, and these plants will grow year round. They're not reliant on the seasons to be able to grow.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I remark about these things, these units, is that basically it provides the optimal growing conditions in a way that's basically it just maintains itself. Like there's really no work to do with the lighting and with the water. with the fertilizer that you add into the water tank, it's basically optimal growing conditions all year round.
That's exactly right. And that's what we've tried to create. And the nutrients that we provide with our gardens as well is a top of the line nutrient supply from the Netherlands. So for a little bit of context on how our organization started, our two co-founders were U of T students doing their capstone project in their Masters of Plant Science and Business Administration. So one of our founders is more like the business guy that's kind of tiered, and he's very focused on like the marketing, sales, running the business. How do we get these farms out into the market? How do we get people getting a hold of our gardens? Also a very good plant science guy. Our other co-founder, Kevin Jakila, is very much the plant science brains behind our organization. And he worked um, for a few different companies that were doing larger scale hydroponic farming in container farms in different growing environments. So he comes from that plant science background. So anything that we do with our product from a growth perspective, he's very, very focused on. So our nutrient supplier, who's an organization called Canna from the Netherlands, they are top of the line nutrients for hydroponic growing. They originally focused it in the cannabis industry, and they've recently moved more into conventional growing. So, conventional crops. And we swear by them in terms of the ability for them to deliver high yield, high growth, and the nutrients are top notch in terms of what they're designed to deliver.
Oh, I believe it because I've posted images within the community. I'll pull out, say, a piece of lettuce, and the roots are like a mile long. It's unbelievable. So
Yeah.
I guess a tip for people who are thinking about buying one or already have one is check the roots maybe weekly because they get so abundant that which is great, but they can also clog up the system. So you want to check on and chop it. Maybe what about a third off is what the pro tip is there.
Yeah, we even say these days we just like almost chop it right back. It depends on
Yeah.
what the plant you're growing, but things like leafy greens, like you can chop them right back. The longest that I've seen was I had roots that were like 4 feet, so pretty much up to my chest. So
Yeah.
that was like, wow, we're not maintaining this garden. We should have trimmed these roots a little sooner.
I can just imagine the pictures that are being shared around the water cooler at JustVertical head office. Hey, look at the size of my roots I got on my rhubarb, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Chris, any last words to share with folks listening?
You know what? Reach out to me personally, like if you're interested and like if you're interested in purchasing one of our gardens, but even if you're interested in just chatting and just telling us about your growing journey, we were speaking about it before, just having conversations with people. That's the biggest thing that's really helpful for me is to constantly converse with people and see what they want, what they need. We're actually, if you haven't subscribed to our email database or our email just yet, come in and subscribe to our email because in the next couple of weeks, we're actually sending out a survey. It's just a general survey, just being like, hey, who are you? What are you interested in? What are you looking for in a product? And we use that internally to be like, okay, people are asking for us to have more plant sites or more grow lights or have bigger growing space. And we use that to subsequently decide what direction we push our company towards. Because to your point, to actually listen and speak to people is hugely important for us. And so much of modern days is built on just making assumptions of who people are and what they like based on broad profiles, but we're not necessarily as interested in that. I want to have individual conversations and individual, experiences with people to better understand how we're impacting lives individually. And even if they're not one of our growers, like what are you looking for personally? So yeah, again, my name's Christopher Di Grazia. Go to our website, check us out, check out our team, and you'll see information about myself or Kevin and Connor, who are our two co-founders. And we're more than happy to have a conversation. I'm always more than happy to jump on a call and just speak with people and just learn more about their growing journey and what's happening and everything related to the industry and growing just generally.
That's awesome. And you've generously are offering a special discount of $75 on either the Eve or the Eva model using, I guess it's discount code Jessica hyphen S. Oh, no, Jessica hyphen U, YOU.
Yeah, I believe
So,
so. I can't remember
yeah,
exactly what I made the discount code, but
something
it
like
is
that. I'll make sure I get it right.
yeah. Yeah, make sure you pop it out there and get the right one. But yeah, there's $75 off as well for using that discount code.
I'll make sure to put your website and your name and details and the code in the notes of this video. Chris, I just want to thank you for taking the time today. I had a feeling just from my brief interactions with Just Vertical when we first were thinking about buying the garden and talking with folks there about which one maybe good for us and the customer service we've experienced since. But after having spoken with you today, I'm even more inspired and feeling really good about your company and the team there. But most importantly, I guess what you're trying to be and what you're not trying to be, because sometimes companies try to be everything everyone, and sometimes that doesn't work. I love your vision on what you're trying to do and how you're trying to grow the business, but not for the sake of growing it for profit reasons, but growing it to get this into the hands of those people who are in need. Like you said, whether it's deserts, hot or cold, economically disadvantaged areas, or people who are just looking because they need it. Like you said, institutions like home care or retirement homes or things like that. It's a wonderful Canadian story that I am so happy to help get the word out about you guys, especially for those people, not just in our community, but like-minded folks who are whether they're avid gardeners or have an interest in being healthy or just looking to be a bit more independent and having a bit more control over their own food, so they're a little less reliant on others. I think what you're doing is amazing, and like I said, I can't wait to spread the word so more people are aware of what your awesome team is doing. So thank
And
you
one,
very
and
much.
one more, that's awesome. Thank you so much, David. And one more thing to very quickly mention is we're always looking for other organizations to collaborate with. So if there's organizational people or organizational bodies listening to this, like reach out to me personally again, and we'll see how we can work together. I think it's so important to amplify messages to like-minded audiences through collaboration. So if anybody wants to reach out and collaborate, please reach out to me because I'm always looking to do that.
And maybe we can have another chat down the road and get an update on some of your experiments, which may be in production and available for sale down the road.
Sounds good.
All right, Chris, thank you again. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, David.
Okay, bye for now.